जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी जय गोपीजन वल्लभ जय गिरिवरधारी जय गिरिवरधारी जय यशोदा नंदना जय ब्रजजन रंजना जय यशोदानंदना जय ब्रजजन रंजना जय यशोदानंदना जय ब्रजजन रंजना जय यशोदानंदना जय ब्रजजन रंजना जय यमुना तीरवनचारी जय कुंज बिहारी 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 हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय जगन्नाथ बलदेव माई की जय नरसिंह भगवान की जय पंचतत्व की जय षड गोस्वामी की जय गुरु परंपरा की जय जगन्नाथ शिवपाद की जय गुरुदेव की जय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेषु बद्धेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. So Hare Krishna Prabhu's Mataji, welcome all of you. Thank you for keeping the appointment with Krishna today for hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So today we'll be discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, third canto, verse number third canto, 24th chapter, verse number 11. So let's recite the verse. Sabhajayan vishuddhena चेतसा तच्चिकीर्षितम् प्रहृष्यमाणेरसुभिः कर्दमं चेदमभ्यदात् सभाजयन् विशुद्धेन चेतसा तच्चिकीर्षितम् प्रहृष्यमाणेरसुभिः कर्दमं चेदमभ्यदात् सभाजयन् विशुद्धेन चेतसा तच्चिकीर्षितम् प्रहृष्यमाणेरसुभिः कर्दमं चेदमभ्यदात्. Anybody would like to recite?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, may I?
Yes, Mataji, please.
सभाजयन् विशुद्धेन चेतसा तच्चिकीर्षितं प्रहृष्यमाणैरसुभिः कर्दमं चेदमभ्यधात्. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Mataji. Hare Krishna.
May I, Prabhuji?
Yes, Mataji.
सभाजयन् विशुद्धेन चेतसा तच्चिकीर्षितम् प्रहृष्यमाणैरसुभिः कर्दमं चेदमभ्यधात्.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Anybody would like has to recite? Okay. So the translation is, it's a word-to-word meaning. Sabhajayan, worshipping. Vishuddhena, pure. Chetasa, with a heart. Tat, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Chikirshitam, the intended activities. Prashyamanehi, gladdened. Asubihi, with senses. Kardamam, to Kardamamuni. Cha, and Devahuti. Idam, this. Abhedad, spoke. Translation and purport by Divine Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Please hear the translation and purport. After worshipping the Supreme Lord with gladdened senses and a pure heart for his intended activities as an incarnation, Brahma spoke as follows to Kardama and Devahuti. Purport. As explained in Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, anyone who understands the transcendental activities, the appearance and the disappearance of Supreme Personality of Godhead is to be considered liberated. Brahma is therefore a liberated soul. Although he is in charge of this material world, he is not exactly like the common living entity. Since he is liberated from the majority of the follies of the common living entities, he was in knowledge of the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he therefore worshipped the Lord's activities. And with a glad heart, he also praised Kadama Muni because the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Kapila had appeared as his son. One who can become the father of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is certainly a great devotee. There is a verse spoken by a Brahmana in which he says that he does not know what the Vedas and what the Puranas are. But while others might be interested in the Vedas or Puranas, he is interested in Nanda Maharaj, who appeared as the father of Krishna. The Brahmana wanted to worship Nanda Maharaj because the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a child crawled in the yard of his house. So these are some of the good sentiments of devotees. If a recognized devotee brings forth the Supreme Personality of Godhead as his son, how he should be praised. Therefore, Brahma not only worshipped the incarnation of Godhead, Kapila, but also praised his so-called father, Kardama Muni. Jai Srila Prabhupada's transcendental purport ki jai. Om Gyantamarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamahyam Yadati Supadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagarajatam Sagana Raghunatamitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savdutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahaganalita Shri Vishakha Vitamsya He Krishna Karna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrinda Vaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yonta Pravishya Mamavacha Imam Prasuptam Sanjeevayati Akila Shakti Dharaswadam Nam Kanyam Chahasta Charana Shramanato Gadin Prananamo Bhagavate Purushaya Tubyam Namo Shri Vishnu Shri Mahashku Swami Tanamari Namo Shri Vishnu Shri Vasam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya. So Hare Krishna Prabhu's Mata is. I welcome all of you once again. Thank you for joining, for being eager to hear Krishna Katha early in the morning. It's so auspicious to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So this beautiful verse, we'll discuss the chapter itself is so wonderful. See, this is the third canto, 24th chapter, right? But in the last verse of the previous chapter, Devavati Mata says, "My Lord, surely I have been solidly cheated by the insurmountable illusory energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For, in spite of having obtained your association, which gives liberation from material bondage, I did not seek such liberation." So Devavati is telling to Kadmamuni. She had his association. She knew that he's a great sage, but she did not seek such liberation, right? So that's what she is lamenting, actually. That's what the previous chapter was given. Devavati's lamentation. See, in the first verse of this chapter, just a moment. I'll just share the screen also. So this is the chapter which we are discussing, actually, in this 11th verse. So the chapter's title, The Renunciation of Kardama Muni. See, in the first translation, he says, no, recalling the words of Lord Vishnu. The merciful sage Kardama replied as follows. So what was Kardama recalling the words? What was the words of Vishnu? That we should know, right? That is, in third canto, 21st chapter, third verse and 3rd and 24th verses, right? It is so Prabhupada in the purport of 3:20 and 23, he says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his Paramatma feature is situated in everyone's heart. Therefore, what happens? He knows the past, present, and future of every individual person, as well as his desires, activities, and everything about it. So, therefore, it is stated in Bhagavad Gita that Krishna is seated in the heart as a witness. And so, he knew the heart's desire of Kardama Muni. And he had already arranged for the fulfillment of Kardama Muni's desires. See, Krishna, he never disappoints a sincere devotee, regardless of what he wants. But Krishna never allows anything which will be detrimental to the individual's devotional service. That also is very important. See, in the 3:21-24 translation purport, Prabhupada says in the translation, now Krishna says, Krishna is telling to Kardamuni, my dear Rishi, O leader of the living entities, for those who serve me in devotion by worshipping me, especially persons like you who have given up everything unto me, there is never any question of frustration. We are frustrated. We are all frustrated at every moment, right? Something doesn't happen as we wish. But see what Krishna says, for those who serve me in devotion by worshipping me, especially persons like you who have given up everything unto me, there is never any question of frustration. So he is completely following Sarvadharma Parithija, right? So the purport, Prabhupada very beautifully says, even if he has some desires, one engaged in the service of the Lord is never frustrated. That's if you are in the service of the Lord at that moment, we are never frustrated, right? So those engaged in his service are called Sakama and Akama. Those who approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead with desires for material enjoyment are called Sakama. And those devotees who have no material desires for sense gratification, but serve the Supreme Lord out of spontaneous love for him, are called Akama. So Sakama devotees are divided into 4 classes. Those in distress, those in need of money, the inquisitive, and the wise. That is, someone worships the Supreme Lord because of bodily or mental distress. That is the first category. Second is, someone else worships the Supreme Lord because he is in need of money. Third category, someone else worships the Lord out of inquisitiveness to know about him as he is. And the fourth category, someone wants to know the Lord as a philosopher by the research work of his wisdom, jnana. So Prabhupada says there is no frustration for any of these 4 classes of men, because each is endowed with the desired result of his worship. To the extent you surrender, to that extent Krishna reciprocates. See, Kardamuni and Devavati, they are the emblem of ideal couple. They are truly submissive to the will of the Lord. Not only will of the Lord, even the superiors, elders also, right through the life. And apart from that, they are also humble and honest in their devotional service. So what are the qualities we learned, right? For being an emblem of ideal couple, we should be truly submissive to the will of the Lord and superiors throughout. And apart from that, they should be humble and honest in the devotional service. Then, never proud of all the blessings they got from the Supreme Lord and Brahma. That I'm getting a blessing from that proudness also should not be there. See, it was foretold by the Supreme Lord himself to Kardama Muni that he will appear as his son. Brahma also reconfirmed it. So in such a situation, see, Krishna himself comes and tells that I will be coming as your son. And Brahma also confirmed, right? So in such a situation, there is every reason for Kardama Muni to become elated, right? And boast about his great fortune. Correct, no? If we were in his position, what we would have done? If Krishna told, like, I will be coming as your son, we would have printed thousands of posters, pasted it all over the city, propagated in mass media, TV, WhatsApp, Facebook, newspapers. The Lord is going to appear as my son. In fact, we would even advertise ourselves to be as good as God and expect everyone to worship us with the same pomp as they would worship the Lord. Such is the amount of Pratishta Asha. Pratishta Asha means desire for name and fame. And moreover, we will stop performing even the small amount of austerity that we were performing in our lives. Because now Krishna is going to come as our son, right? We will become not only lazy, we will become extra lazy, thinking that we are very important and everyone will anyway come to serve us. After all, Supreme Lord is appearing as our son. So how important we must be, right? Whereas in the case of Kardama Muni and Devavati, they showed how one must be on the ground while performing devotional service. Even if they are aware well ahead of time of the good fortune which is coming in their future. That's what Kardama Muni says in the third verse of this chapter. Sorry. Yeah, this is the third verse. No? You have undertaken sacred vows, God will bless you. Hence, you should worship the Lord with great faith through sensory control, religious observances, austerities, and gifts or money in charity. So very beautiful verse. So here Prabhupada very nicely he says, in order to spiritually advance or achieve the mercy of the Lord, please hear carefully. In order to spiritually advance or achieve the mercy of the Lord, one must be self-controlled. How? He gives how you should be self-controlled in the following manner. He says, he must be restrained in sense gratification, must follow the rules and regulations of religious principles. These are the two main things. And moreover, without austerity and penance, and without sacrificing one's riches, one cannot achieve the mercy of the Lord. Without austerity and penance, and without sacrificing one's riches, one cannot achieve the mercy of the Lord. Therefore, Kardama Muni advised his wife, Devavati, you have to factually engage in devotional service with austerity and penance, following the religious principles and giving charity. Then the Supreme Lord will be pleased with you and he will come as your son. See, the words factually engage in devotional service is very important. Devotional service means to take up some kind of austerity and penance to satisfy the Lord. The greatest austerity for all of us is to get up early in the morning for doing Mangalati, right? Chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra early in the morning. See, without austerity, we will only be taking up armchair philosophy or do some sense gratification in the name of devotional service. See, even though it was told to Kardama Muni and Devavati that the Lord will appear as his son, still Kardama Muni advised Devavati to undergo strict austerity and penance to achieve the Lord's mercy. So this is the humility the Lord expects from us. And in fact, only a devotee who has this humility and willingness to do anything to please the Lord will become the rightful heir to receive the Lord's mercy. Rightful heir, right? And the fourth verse, purport, Prabhupada says, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead comes to disseminate spiritual knowledge for the benefit of all people, he generally descends as the son of a devotee, being pleased by the devotee's devotional service. We see Devaki Mata and Vasudeva, right? Pratamuni and Devati. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the father of everyone. He is father of everyone. Therefore, no one is his father. But by his inconceivable energy, he accepts some of the devotees as his parents and descendants. And who are some of the people who really enjoyed the parental affection towards Krishna? Who are those? One is Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj, right? Then in fact, the Gopis, when Lord Brahma took away the sons, so Krishna expanded himself, right, everywhere. Then Devaki Mata, Vasudeva, right? So this is so wonderful. So the list is very important. So we can see that Mother Yashoda and Maharaj Nanda are considered to be the supermost of elderly personalities. See, this current verse which we discussed now, in the translation, Prabhupada says, worshipping the Supreme Lord with gladdened senses and a pure heart. Worship the Supreme Lord with gladdened senses and a pure heart. See, in 8th canto, 3rd chapter, 1st verse, there's a beautiful verse with Gajendra's prayers. Before that, he says, Sri Badarayana Urvacha, that's Shukadeva Goswami, telling, Evam Vyavasito Buddhya Samadhaya Manoradi Jajapa Paramam Japyam Prajanmanyanu Shikshitam. Thereafter, the king of the elephants, Gajendra, fixed his mind in his heart with perfect intelligence and chanted a mantra which he had learned in his previous birth as Indradyumna and which he remembered by the grace of Krishna. So we always have to fix our mind, the heart, with perfect intelligence. That's what Kadamuni did. And he's asking Devaki Mata to do so that Krishna will be pleased. See, to spread the Krishna conscious movement throughout the world, the devotee should be satisfied in all conditions. Prabhupada says in the purport of 431.19, to spread Krishna conscious movement throughout the world, the devotee should be satisfied in all conditions. He refers Bhagavatam 6:17-28 in that verse. Narayana para sarve na kutaschana bhibyati swarga pavargas narakeshva apitulyartha dharshinaha. This 431.19 is the Dayaya sarva bhuteshu santushta yenakineva sarvendra upashanti acha tushyate ashu janatan. That verse. He says, it does not matter to the pure devotee. Very nice point. It does not matter to the pure devotee if he has to go to hell to preach. The Supreme Lord lives in the heart of a hog, although the Lord is in Vaikuntha. Even while preaching in hell, a pure devotee remains a pure devotee by his constant association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To attain this state, one has to control his senses. And Prabhupada makes a very beautiful statement. The senses are automatically controlled when one's mind is engaged in the service of the Lord. We do not do any extra endeavor. See, the greatest devotee, Yudhishthira Maharaj, he was asking Lord Krishna, it was to demonstrate the result of worshipping Krishna and the result of not worshipping Krishna. So he was asking Krishna. So if the people of the world could understand this, they could begin to recognize that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and that everyone's ultimate self-interest lies in surrendering to him. As it is confirmed by great authorities, right? Yudhishthira Maharaj is a pure devotee of the Lord. And so his actual motivation in discharging his duties as a king was to establish the supremacy of Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is the real purport of the activities of the Pandavas, which are described both in Bhagavatam and in Mahabharata, to establish the Supreme Personality of Godhead. See, in 4:24:59 purport, Prabhupada says, when one's heart is purified by the association of devotees, when one's heart is purified by the association of devotees and by the avoidance of offenses committed when chanting and worshipping the Lord, the transcendental name, form, and activities of the Lord are revealed by the Lord. So we should be purified by association of devotees and avoiding while chanting the 10 offenses and worshipping the deities. Then Krishna's name, Krishna's form and activities are revealed. See, we all, our main ultimate goal of life is to go back home, back to Godhead, right? So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, whatever you think at the time of death, that you become. So that's why this training ground, chanting Hare Krishna mantra, reciting verses, then hearing Bhagavad Gita, right? That's why Bhagavad Gita says, Yamam Vapi Smaran Bhavan, Tajati Yante Kalevaram, Tam Tam Evaiti Kaunteya Sada Tad Bhava Bhavita. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, Osanaputi, that state he will attain without fail. See, the character of the subtle body at the time of death is determined by the sum total of one's activities during one's lifetime. What all activities do during one's lifetime? That depends on the character of the subtle body. So, if a human being is taught to change his subtle body by developing Krishna consciousness, then at the time of death, his subtle body will create a gross body in which he will be a devotee of Krishna. Or if he is still more advanced, he will not take another material body at all, but will immediately get a spiritual body and thus return home back to God. So this is the perfection of human life. Prabhupada beautifully says in this, in the book, Second Chance, no, in the chapter Body of Desire. And again in the translation of current verse 324:11, he speaks about for his, Brahmaji is talking, no, for his intended activities as an incarnation. What is intended activities as he is speaking about? Activities is that Krishna is going to come as a son of Kardamuni and Devavati. See, Chaitanya Chaitamrita, it says, Prabhupada says, the Lord does not have a material body. Yet he descends among human beings in his transcendental body as an incarnation. Therefore, it is very difficult for us to understand who is an incarnation. Only by his extraordinary prowess and uncommon activities, which are impossible for all living entities, can partially understand the incarnation of Supreme Personality of God. Only by seeing that uncommon activities, no, totally different. See, there are also other unscrupulous persons, right, who exploit the Lord's appearance by posing as incarnations. For what? To cheat the innocent public. An incarnation of God should pass the test of the statements of the Shastras and also perform uncommon activities. Prabhupada says, one should not accept a rascal as an incarnation of God, but should test his ability to act as a Supreme Personality of God. For example, Krishna taught Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, and Arjuna also accepted him as a Supreme Personality of Godhead. But for our understanding, Arjuna requested Krishna to manifest his universal form, thus testing whether he was actually a Supreme Lord. Similarly, one must test a so-called incarnation of Godhead according to standard criteria. So to avoid being misled by the exhibition of mystic powers, it is best to examine a so-called incarnation of God in the light of the statements of the Shastras. That's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is described in the Shastras as an incarnation of Krishna. Therefore, if one wants to imitate Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and claim to be an incarnation, he must show evidence from the Shastras about his appearance to substantiate his claim. And Prabhupada says in the purport of 324:11, as explained in Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, anyone who understands the transcendental activities, the appearance and disappearance of Supreme Personality of Godhead is to be considered liberated. Very nice. It is actually in the Bhagavad Gita. This speaks about the verse from Bhagavad Gita 4.9. Janma karma chame divyam evam yo vetti tattvatah tyaktva deham punarjanma neti mam eti kaunteya. He says, one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. This is what Krishna is telling in 4.9 verse Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, the process of my birth and process of my activities, they are all transcendental. How others, people are misusing, right? Krishna himself is telling, they are transcendental. So anyone who can understand the transcendental activities, appearance, disappearance of Supreme Personality of Godhead, then the result is Tyaktva deham punarjanma neti mam neti kaunteya. The result is that anyone who understands these activities of the Lord, tattvataha, in truth, the result is that he becomes a liberated person. Tyaktva deham. Tyaktva means by quitting, by giving up this present material body. He at once is transferred to the spiritual world. That's why 4.9, Tyaktva deham punarjanma neti, na iti. It does not require to come back here in this material world, to have again this material body, right? He at once develops his own spiritual body, just like Krishna says, right? This is the process. Simply by understanding the transcendental activities and the appearance of and disappearance, he becomes fully spiritualized. And the result, he does not get this material body. He will get a spiritual body. Already is a spirit, no spiritual, it's transcendental. I got the spiritual body, but that body is not covered by this matter now. So by understanding the transcendental activities of Krishna, by Krishna consciousness, one can become liberated. And what is the result of that liberation? That is also given in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, Maam upete kaunteya. My dear Arjuna, Kaunteya, son of Kunti, please note, Maam upetya. Anyone who comes to me, Maam upete kaunteya, dukkhalaya mashashvatam napnuvanti. Anyone who comes to me, he does not come again to this material world, which is dukkhalayam, a place of misery. So he says, after attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. This material world is certified by the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a place of misery. Now, if this place is made up for that purpose, just to give us miseries only, how you can make it a place of happiness? The place is meant for that purpose. So, Krishna says, anybody who comes back to me, he hasn't got to come back again to this place of miseries. Tyakta deham punarjanma na eti mam, neti mam, eti tattvataha. See, in the purport of 3:29-36 Bhagavatam, Prabhupada says, in order to distinguish the personality whom the individual soul must approach, it is described that this Purusha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the chief amongst all living entities, and is the ultimate form of the impersonal Brahman, effulgence, and Paramatma manifestation. And since he is the origin of the Brahman effulgence and Paramatma manifestation, he is described as the chief personality. And it is also confirmed in Katha Upanishad, Nityo Nityana. There are many eternal entities, living entities, but he is the chief maintainer. And this is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita also, where Lord Krishna says, Aham Sarvasya Prabhava. I am the origin of everything, the seed verse, including Brahman effulgence and Paramatma manifestation. So Krishna's activities are transcendental, as it is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Janma karma shiva divyam, right? Activities, appearance, disappearance, they're not to be considered material. So anyone who knows this, now if you know that Krishna is transcendental, he's not a human being who has come, right? And a little extra superhuman powers are there. No, it's not like that. But if you know him, that he is a supreme personality of Godhead, his activities and appearance and disappearance are transcendental. If he knows that, then that appearance, disappearance of activities are, then that person is liberated. Yo yoeti tattva dektya deham punarjanma. So such a person, what happens? After quitting his body, it does not come back again to this material world. It goes to the Supreme Person, Golok Vrindavan. So this is a very, very important thing. That's why we are hearing Krishna Katha. We are trying to have 100% faith in Krishna. Whatever he's telling is correct. Accept him. That's why in 8th Canto, 18th chapter, 1st verse, purport, Prabhupada says, the Lord sometimes appears like an ordinary child taking birth. But this does not mean that he is subject to birth, death, old age, and disease. One must be very intelligent to understand the appearance and activities of Supreme Lord in his incarnations. So one should try to understand the Lord's appearance and activities are transcendental. The Lord has nothing to do with mental activities, right? So there was one question to Prabhupada. How could Vishnu appear from the nostril of Brahma? See, so people have different questions like this, right? First is he's a human being, they say. Now, how does he appear from the nostril of Brahma? Prabhupada answers that Vishnu being all-pervading, he can appear from any place. Prabhupada says he appeared as Lord Narasimha Deva from the pillar. So one may question how Vishnu may appear from the pillar. But actually he appeared. He is all powerful with inconceivable potency. And therefore he can appear himself from anywhere he likes. See, when the Lord appeared as a small hog from the nostril of Brahma, he began to expand more and more. And gradually he became a gigantic boar. So these are inconceivable energy of the Supreme Lord. It does not mean that Brahma's nostril is the birthplace of Vishnu. See, the sun rises from the eastern horizon, right? So it does not mean that eastern horizon is the birthplace of the sun. So we should understand the transcendental appearance and disappearance of the transcendental personality of God like this. See, Prabhupada, in the current verse, I'm just going by the purport's lines, right? When the 11th purport, 23, 24, 11 purport, Prabhupada says, which we read in the beginning, right? He says, since he's liberated from the majority of the follies of the common living entities. They are talking about Brahma. Since he is liberated from the majority of the follies of the common living entities, he was in knowledge of the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he therefore worshipped the Lord's activities. And with a glad heart, he also praised Kadama Muni because Supreme Personality of Godhead as Kapila had appeared as his son. Now, what are the follies he's talking about? Brahma is liberated from all the follies of common living entities. See, to her, he's human. This is indeed a practical truth. We find that our scriptures also know they describe the 4 kinds of defects which are bound to be committed by us. How? When we are engaging ourselves in any kind of service. Number one, we are sure to commit mistakes. We are invariably illusioned. We have the tendency to cheat others, and we are limited by imperfect senses. See, all these imperfections appear in our activities. We make mistakes, we illusion, tendency to cheat, limited by imperfect senses, right? So all these appear in our activities when we perform them without remembering Krishna or seeking permission from him. And also at least seeking permission from the spiritual master. So all these imperfections appear in our activities, right? So in Srimad Bhagavatam, we can find from the lives of pure devotees of the Lord as to how we could overcome these 4 defects. So while explaining the process of creation to the sage at Naimisharanya, Suta Goswami says in 2:4:11, he said, when Shukadeva Goswami was thus requested by the king, Parishit Maharaj, to describe the creative energy of the personality of Godhead, he then systematically remembered the master of the senses, Sri Krishna. And to reply properly, he spoke thus. So see, in his match, in the wonderful purport of this verse, Prabhupada says, the devotee of the Lord, while delivering speeches and describing the transcendental attributes of the Lord, do not think that they can do anything independently. They think that they can speak only what they are induced to speak by the Supreme Lord, the master of the senses. See, the senses of the individual beings are not his own. Devotee knows that such senses belong to Supreme Lord, and they can be properly used when they are employed for the service of the Lord. See, no one is free to act freely and independently. So one should always seek the permission of the Lord to act, or to eat, or to speak. And with the blessing of the Lord, everything done by a devotee is beyond the principles of the 4 defects, typical of the conditions. So whenever we want to do any activity nowadays, seek the permission of Krishna, Guru, then all these 4 defects will not touch you. The lesson we should learn is that from the such elevated souls like Shukadeva Goswami is to always seek the permission of Lord before engaging in any kind of service, spiritual or material. So when we surrender to Lord and seek his help, he blesses us with all the intelligence to speak, to write, to cook, right? To speak or write about him or cook nice prasad. We take the blessings before we do any activity. So not only when we speak about the Lord, when we are engaging our tongue for speaking to others, we tend to commit so many offenses, which will put us into a whirlpool of sufferings. So it is very essential to seek permission from Lord always, so that we don't misuse our ability of speech under any circumstances. That's why the 3:24:12, the next verse, which will be tomorrow, Prabhupada gives a more simple and sublime instruction on overcoming the 4 defects. He says, if one carries out the order of the spiritual master by disciplic succession or the parampara system, he overcomes the 4 defects. That's why Bhagavad Gita as it is. Follow the parampara as it is. So after executing the service, see, another important, after executing service, it's all the more important for us to remember that we are mere instruments. The actual credit for successful execution of any kind of service is due only to spiritual master and Krishna. See, Lord Kapila appeared in this world as the son of Kadama Muni and his wife Devavati. But Kadama Muni and Devavati, they were aware of the divinity of their son. Even before Kapila's birth, Brahma himself, the chief created person in the universe, right? He had appeared before Devavati and revealed to her that her son was to be an incarnation of Supreme Lord, and this incarnation would enlighten her with spiritual knowledge. See, according to the Vedic system, a man with a grown-up son may accept the order of sannyasa, thereby renouncing all connections with his family and worldly life. And finally, he will entrust his wife to the care of his son. Kadama Muni, he of course knew that his son was an incarnation of Supreme Lord. Sorry. He knew that his son was an incarnation. Yet to honor this Vedic wisdom, and to emphasize its importance, Kadama Muni eventually accepted sannyasa, entrusting his wife Devavati to the care of his divine son Kapil Dev. So as Sutta Goswami begins to answer Shaunakas request to hear further about Lord Kapil Dev, the sages have already been informed of how Kadama Muni departed for the forest, leaving Kapil Deva behind with Devavati. So after Kadama Muni's departure, father of Kapila, the husband of Devavati, Devavati Mata remembered the words of Brahma. So she approaches her son and humbly expresses her desire for spiritual enlightenment. She says, "My Lord, I have fallen into the abyss of ignorance. Your Lordship is my only means of getting out of this darkest region of ignorance, because you are my transcendental eye, by which, by your mercy, I have attained. So now, after many, many births, I have attained this mercy. So please dispel my great delusion." She says, "You are the axe which can cut the tree of material existence. I therefore offer my obeisances to you, who are the greatest of all transcendentalists, and I inquire from you as to the relationship between man and woman and between spirit and matter." So pleased by his mother's pure desire for spiritual enlightenment and feeling great compassion for her, Kapil, when he begins to speak on this devotional service. This comes in the next chapter, 33rd canto, 25th chapter onwards. See, devotees, they are so affectionate toward Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that although he does not appear before those who practice yoga in a secluded place, even for many, many births, he agrees to appear in a householder's grahastha's home, where devotees engage in devotional service without material yoga practice. See, devotional service to the Lord is so easy that even a householder can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead as one of the members of his household, as his son, as Kadama Muni experienced. He was a householder, although a yogi, but he had the incarnation of Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kapila Muni, as his son. So devotional service is such a powerful transcendental method that it surpasses all other methods of transcendental realization. So the Lord says that he lives neither in the Vaikuntha nor in the heart of a yogi, but he lives where his pure devotees are always chanting and glorifying him. Therefore, Krishna is known as the Bhakta Vatsala. He is never described as Jnana Vatsala or Yogi Vatsala. He is always described as Bhakta Vatsala, because he is more inclined towards devotees than toward other transcendentalists. In Bhagavad Gita, it is confirmed that only a devotee can understand him as he is. Bhaktya ma vaijanati. One can understand me only by devotional service. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktya ma vaijanati. One can understand me only by devotional service, not otherwise. And that understanding alone is real, because although Gyanis, mental speculators, can realize only the effulgence of the body luster. Yogis can realize only the partial representation of the Supreme Personality of God. The Bhakta not only realizes him as he is, but also associates with the Personality of Godhead face to face. So how powerful, right? See, Kartamamuni, he practiced yoga very rigidly as a brahmachari before his marriage. And he became so powerful and retained so much mystic power that his father, Brahma, he ordered him to marry and beget children as a household. And Kartamamuni did that also. He begot 9 good daughters and 1 son, Kapilamuni. And thus, his household duty was also performed nicely. And now his duty was to leave. Even though he had the Supreme Personality of Godhead as his son, he had to respect the authority of the Vedas. And this is a very important lesson. Even if one has God in his home as his son, one should still follow the Vedic injunctions. It is stated, Mahajano yena gata sa pantaha. One should traverse the path which is followed by great personalities. So Kartamuni's example is very instructive. For in spite of having the Supreme Lord as his son, he left home just to obey the authority of Vedic injunction. Now Kartamuni states that the main purpose of his leaving home, when traveling all over the world as a mendicant, he would always remember the Supreme Lord within his heart and thereby be freed from all the anxieties of mental existence. Same thing happened with Narada Muni, right? So in this age of Kali Yuga, sannyasa is prohibited. Prabhupada says, in this age of Kali Yuga, sannyasa is prohibited because persons in this age are all Shudras and cannot follow the rules and regulations of sannyasa life. It is very commonly found, the so-called sannyasis are addicted to nonsense, even to having private relationships with one. So this is the abominable situation in this age. Although they dress themselves as sannyasis, they still cannot free themselves from the 4 principles of sinful life. What are the 4 principles of sinful life? Illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling. They are not able to get out of this. They think themselves dressed as sannyasis. So since they are not freed from these 4 principles, they are cheating the public by posing as swamis. In Kali Yuga, the injunction is that no one should accept sannyasa. Of course, those who actually follow the rules and regulations must take sannyasa. Generally, people are unable to accept sannyasa life, and therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stressed, Kalau nastya eva nastya eva nastya gatiranyatha. In this age, there is no other alternative than to chant the holy name of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So the main purpose of sannyasa life is to be constant companionship with the Supreme Lord. How? Either by thinking of him within the heart or hearing of him through oral reception. So we are now hearing, right? So in this age, hearing is more important than thinking because one's thinking may be disturbed by mental agitation. But if one concentrates on hearing, see, there's difference between listening and hearing, right? But you concentrate on hearing, he will be forced to associate with the sound vibration of Krishna. Krishna and sound vibration, Krishna are non-different. So if one loudly vibrates the Hare Krishna mantra, he will be able to think of Krishna immediately. The moment you start chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, you think about Krishna immediately. So this process of chanting is the best process of self-realization. So in this age, therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu preached it so nicely for the benefit of all humanity. He gave it so easily, so munificent, right? Just by chanting, you can go back to it. See, in Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 21st chapter, we find that when Brahma asks Kartamuni to assist him in his service of increasing the progeny of the world, Kartamuni practiced the penance of devotional service for 10,000 years. See, very nice lesson for us. Huh? See, in case of Kartamuni, Brahmaji is both his father as well as his spiritual master. So, when Guru or Father assigns us some service, we should first pray to Krishna, seek his blessings for correct direction and successful execution of the service. See, on our own, we are completely useless and not capable of doing anything. We are fully dependent on Krishna. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada very nicely says in one of his lectures on the 115.1 Bhagavatam, he says, everyone is falsely thinking independent, but he is dependent. But he is depending on false platform. That is the mistake of this material civilization. They are thinking of protection from a platform that is material world. So we have to take shelter of Krishna. Kardama Muni took complete shelter of the Supreme Lord. That's why in Bhagavatam 3:21-7, Maitreya Muni says to Vidura, during that period of penance, the sage Kardama, by worship through devotional service in trance, propitiated the personality of Godhead, who is the quick bestower of all blessings upon those who flee to him for protection. Run to Krishna for protection, right? That Uttara, she was running towards Krishna, praying for him to save her from the Brahmastra. So the Lord was pleased by his penance and appeared before him. So Kardama Muni then offered beautiful prayers to the Lord and honestly revealed his desires to the Supreme Lord. So this is another nice quality of Kardama Muni. See, he was not a duplicit, saying something, behaving something else. No. He did not pose himself to be a renounced person. Because he was doing penance, the people might think he's a sannyasi, he did a renounced person. No, he didn't pose himself like that. He humbly expressed his desire to get like-minded wife, and he sought his blessing from Krishna so that he could successfully execute what? His father's order of increasing the progeny. So Guru and Krishna are always with us and watching us. So it is very important that we reveal our minds honestly to them, truly to them. That's why the Lord says to Brahmaji in Bhagavatam 2:9-23, Tapomaya hridayam sakshat atmaham tapaso anagaha. Such penance is my heart and soul. He says such penance, Krishna says, such penance is my heart and soul. Therefore, penance and I are non-different. So how much Lord Krishna was pleased seeing the penance performed with Kardama Muni. See, the holy lake Bindu Sarovara, you might have heard Bindu Sarovar, right? The holy lake Bindu Sarovar was flooded by waters of the river Saraswati and was resorted to by hosts, by great sages, right? Its holy water was not only auspicious, but as sweet as nectar. You know why it was called Bindu Sarovar? Because drops of tears had fallen there from the eyes of the Lord. Why he was feeling tears? Because he was overwhelmed by the extreme compassion for the sage who had sought his protection. Just like father, when a son comes back to the father for his protection, he's always feeling safe. Father will be so overwhelmed with compassion, right? So with great love, Krishna, he blesses Kardama Muni that he would get a suitable wife, Devahuti. And through her, he would get 9 daughters, who in turn would carry on the service of increasing the progeny. He also blessed that he himself would appear as their son, Kapila Muni. So such is the loving benediction showered by the Supreme Lord upon his dear devotee. So later, when the Lord appeared in the womb of Devahuti, Brahmaji appeared before them and says, my dear son Kardama, since you have completely accepted my instructions without duplicity, showing them proper respect, you have worshipped me properly. So whatever instructions you took from me, you have carried out, and thereby you have honored me. See, the word Nirvalikataha means without duplicity. So Brahmaji was very pleased with Kardama Muni for having followed his instructions very nicely. He nicely addresses Kardama as Manada, one who gives mana or honor to others. So how can we honor Guru and Krishna? Prabhupada very nicely mentions in the concluding line of the purport. He says in the 12th verse, to honor the spiritual master means to carry out his instructions word for word. To honor the spiritual master means to carry out his instructions word for word. So let us remember the glorious qualities of Kardama Muni and stop. Number 1, to accept the instructions of Guru as life and soul. Number 2, depend on Krishna and seek his blessings. Number 3, perform austerities without duplicity. And 4, carry out the instructions of Guru in toto. And try to practice the same in our day-to-day life. Stop here. Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Really cool. Thank you very much, Father Is, for giving me this opportunity to glorify the Lord. If anybody has questions or anything to share, please. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Dandavat
Thank you.
Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Madhe. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for the nectar today.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Very nice discourse. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Shanta Govida Das Prabhu.
Prabhuji, we have a class tomorrow also of yours. This 8 o'clock slot,
No,
Prabhuji.
no. Tomorrow is not there, Mataji. Tomorrow somebody else will be there. Every day it will be different people. 8 o'clock.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Okay. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Shanta Govida Das Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Nice to see you after a long time. How are things? Thank you. Thank you, Vinamataji. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Revati Nanda Prabhu. Thank you very much for giving the opportunity. Vancha Kalpatarupya. Vibhasan Dubai, Vachapidanam Pavanam Vibhasan.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you. Dandavat Pranam.